I have been learning Mandarin for around 14 years at this point, and I could tell you that it's one of the best decisions I've made. Well, excluding probably, let's say, the 12 years of just me struggling in classes and just feeling like it's torture. But the 2 years I actually learned with immersion learning, which is, well, learning through lots of TV shows and books and just pretty much acquiring that language naturally. Those were pretty much the times I really saw a big boost in my Mandarin ability, and also just, well, a big reason just to learn Mandarin or just seeing all the benefits I can get with it. Because when you want to learn any language in general, having a good reason is going to be a very, very important part of just keeping lots of that internal motivation or to help you push through times which is going to be a lot harder for you. And when you're going to be learning Mandarin, it's not going to be different from any other language or any other skill as well. There are going to be times where you're going to have to go through dark days and just times where you just don't want to learn Mandarin. So this video, I just want to, well, give you reasons why you should learn Chinese, because having a good reason can be very, very powerful in order to learn Chinese. So let's get right straight into it. So, well, the first thing and the first reason I want to talk about is simply, yeah, Mandarin is the most spoken language in the world. It sounds a bit cliche, and it is really, but if you kind of think about it, there's a very good reason why, well, this is actually a very good thing. It's very utilizing, and also it's very easy to just get, well, quick motivation from just people, let's say, speaking Chinese, let's say, in different parts of your, well, let's say, city, where pretty much it's not going to be very hard to find lots of Chinese to support you, even if you don't, let's say, live in a, well, Chinese-speaking area. And pretty much having this motivation is just going to be very, very helpful for you. But not only just having a lot of, let's say, Chinese speakers around the world is going to help you, but also because, simply put it, Chinese also has a very high shock factor as well, because having this really high shock factor, even though it's considered a meme by language step, it's still actually a very good way in order to keep yourself motivated, because it's not going to be very common. It's not going to be very rare where, let's say, even a simple, let's say phrase in Chinese or maybe a sentence in Chinese will probably make, let's say, a Chinese speaker like, whoa, wow, you actually speak Chinese. Or let's say even just a simple compliment. Even my was that appearance is that even online is that people actually get a little bit shocked, like saying, oh, 你中文说得很好. Well, that's actually not a very ideal scenario, but even people will ask me at first, oh, 你是哪里的人? And then after that, they'd be, I'd be talking Chinese, and they're like, oh, actually, your Chinese is actually quite good for, let's say, American. And then pretty much, let's say, these little micro interactions which really help you this sense of, let's say, a bit of pride, and also, let's say, accomplishment of even just, let's say, not even just learning, let's say, a lot of words, but even just simply struggling to speak is still going to be a very, very rewarding experience. And it's very, very easy to get the experience in many, many areas as well. And also, not to mention as well, with just not only Chinese being just a very, very big spoken language, and just pretty much having a lot of great opportunities to meet a lot of great people, but also because that China actually is also about to start to ease up a lot more access and also travel to, let's say, Western travelers. So if you're also trying to, let's say, be able to, let's say, go for business to China, or maybe, let's say, meet Chinese friends, and even just probably just go travel to China for, let's say, a vacation, learning Chinese will be very, very helpful. And in fact, things, let's say, for example, the US level of the US travel regulations last year already dropped China from level 3, which is we consider travel, to just level 2, which also, just want to say, also just this year on June 6th, yes, June 6th, is that China actually extended unilateral visa-free policies in order to go to China, which also includes countries such as Brussels, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Holland, Malaysia, Switzerland. Okay, I'm not going to say all of them, but it's going to be it's around 43 countries. And it's actually, well, China's just going to be a lot more accessible to just, well, Western travelers, especially after the easing up of COVID. And also, if you really don't want to miss out on the opportunity to be able to, let's say, go out in China and also just be able to speak to locals, and highly recommend you check out the Chinese communication course in the description. And if you're wondering what happened to the old Mandarin reading guide, it's also in there as well. But in this course, I'm now going to teach you how to actually speak better in Chinese, be able to, let's say, communicate with people, be able to just actually listen to real Chinese speech rather than just the old textbook ones that just, well, every Chinese course tries to teach you. Highly recommend you check it out. It's also on a pre-sale right now. So let's just go right on to the next point, which is going to be a bit more of an abstract one, but simply, well, changing a worldview. And this is a bit more of an odd one because, well, languages are just simply for communication. But I listened to this book recently, and it's called in Chinese 你一生的预言. And pretty much what this book covered and what pretty much, well, the podcasters talked about is that how languages can actually, well, change the way we perceive the world. Where pretty much the main character of this book actually learns an alien language that actually helps her see into the future, because there's just pretty much this nuance in, let's say, alien language that helps us do it. And you may think, okay, this is all cool and stuff, but of course, this is not alien language. Chinese is not alien language, even though it seems to be so. But in reality, there's actually a lot of things in Chinese that we really don't have in English. For example, the words, for example, for uncle can be split into these things such as 叔叔, 伯伯, 舅舅, like these three, and also just pretty much a lot more of ways to say uncle in Chinese, which I might just show up on the screen here, where you pretty much have, let's say, this new worldview of just being a lot more, let's say, for example, in Chinese, being a lot more sensitive to, let's say, how we, let's say, talk about family, because in, well, Chinese, family is a lot more, well, respected. And also, even just simply calling a stranger, you actually don't call them, let's say, Mr. or Mrs. in some cases, especially when you're still a kid. You might call them 叔叔 or 阿姨 or 姐姐 or 哥哥. Let's say these was callings of other people, where there's going to be, let's say, this weird way where it's just going to change the way you think, and just going to be a very magical thing, because not only just that as well, is that you also are just going to learn a whole nother new culture as well. And just imagine this, where imagine everything you thought was foreign, let's say all the things in Chinese, imagine that was actually familiar with you, because it's actually quite hard to imagine it, because, well, we didn't really grow up in China. But you do also have to realize as well, is like our American culture, even though, well, let's say whatever culture you're in, even though that might be so familiar to you and something that you just always sometimes even take for granted, it's like someone else from another part of the world can really see that and just be like, whoa, that's actually how you guys do it. Oh, that's actually how you guys think, and all these things, and just all these little micro things. Because if you learn Chinese and start to care about it to some point, you're eventually going to become a Chinese speaker yourself. And being a Chinese speaker, you're going to have these different quirks and also things about was that Chinese, what also other native Chinese speakers also tend to share with each other. And it's going to be a very slow process, and it's going to take a lot of what, let's say, language learning to do. But you're going to reach this point eventually, and it's something I really can't describe to you in words right now. And finally as well, what about English and translations? Because definitely I could just communicate in English, well, because the whole world operates on English. And I can also, well, just use a translator if I need to really communicate. Well, first of all, with English, there's actually a very small percentage of people in China that actually speak English. And even though they may be able to speak some English to a superficial level, if you ever want to get into a deeper conversation, or even just talk about things, let's say, oh, what's your favorite movie? You're probably going to need to use Chinese for it, or maybe the other person is probably going to need to be proficient enough in English to be able to talk to you about a bit more, even more, just outside of the superficial things. Let's say, for example, just going to a store and like saying, hey, can I have this, can I have that thing? And they're like, okay, sure. That's actually a very easy thing to do in, well, any other language, where you just ask for things or just like ask basic questions. But if you really want to get into deep conversations, you really need to know, let's say, the person's target language in order to do it. Not only that, but even just using a translator is going to be very different, because one story I can recount is pretty much when I was still volunteering, just right before the trip to Taiwan. I was volunteering in a hospital, and I was the only one who knew at least a slick of Mandarin. And keep in mind, I only immersed for 1 month compared to the 3 months I was going to have when I was going to Taiwan. So I was only immersing for 1 month. And even with this slick of Chinese, I was still able to make people's faces smile. And this would have definitely never been possible if I were not been able to, well, if I were not been able to at least have some sort of Chinese level. Because if you use a translator, yes, you can make some sort of connection. I'm not sure how deep you can get into it, but it's definitely going to be a lot more different when using a translator, and people are going to be a lot more comfortable with you when you use their native language, or even when someone uses your native language and speaks to you, you're going to have some sort of sense of cover instead of just relying on sort of machine to just basically translate it for you. And even just keep in mind that translations are not always accurate as well, because when we also watch things in Chinese, let's say if you're going to watch something subtitled in English, definitely you're going to get the context right. But if you want to get all the nuance, then that is a different thing. Because also, there's going to be times where you just pretty much realize in your Mandarin learning journey, where eventually you just realize it's actually a lot better to just watch things in just Chinese itself rather than just trying to look at the subtitles. Because The subtitles, yes, like I said, to get the context right, but it's not always going to be the exact thing they say. Remember also as well, Chinese and English are two very different languages, and if you just try to pretty much translate within each other, there's going to be some sort of meaning lost within them. Definitely as well, I'm not saying you can't use translations, they're there for a reason, but if you really want to be able to, let's say, understand a piece of media or really connect to someone on a really deep level, you're going to need to be able to speak language itself. Even if let's say you're not really even good, it's a lot better if, let's say, your Chinese is bad and you'll be able to, let's say, speak to someone. They're probably going to be a lot more thankful of your effort compared to if you just like whip out a translator right away and just be like, how do you say hello in Chinese? These things. Now, also just one last disclaimer about, well, all these reasons is that, well, simply these reasons are actually a bit of a scam, because these are actually not very good reasons to learn Chinese. Well, they actually can be good reasons, but there's actually a way to make them better, which is simply, I want to introduce you to this technique right away, is simply the why technique, where pretty much you take one of these reasons that I had given to you and really just ask yourself, why am I learning? Why? Pretty much because if you pretty much just have the, let's say, this reason, I want to learn Chinese because, well, a lot of people speak it, then it's not going to be as motivating as compared to, let's say, a really internal, let's say, reason to learn Chinese. Let me give you an example with this. So let me go demonstrate the technique to you, which is, okay, I want to learn Chinese because it's the world's most spoken language. Okay, why? Because I think it's going to get me a lot of, well, good opportunities. Okay, why? Because I will probably, let's say, one day want to, let's say, be able to, do business in Chinese and really connect with Chinese people. Okay, why? Because it's going to, make them a lot more comfortable, and also it's just going to help me really understand them to, let's say, a lot deeper level. And once you, let's say, get to a certain point where you can't even, let's say, start to break down the question why and why more, then let's say, for example, this thing where compared to, let's say, I want to speak Chinese because, well, I want to be able to speak the language with the most spoken but that's the most spoken, compared to, let's say, I want to speak Chinese because I really want to, let's say, make people comfortable and also just really understand the culture as well. You can see how reason number 2 is a lot more stronger for a reason compared to reason number 1. So this is one thing I highly recommend to do, is that if you're going to, let's say, take the reasons from this video, then try to use the why technique on it, and you'll be surprised that you're going to probably find a really great reason. And maybe even this reason might even be something as silly at first. Let's say, for example, I want to learn Chinese because I want to be able to communicate in Chinese, to eventually break it down to something, let's say, I want to, let's say, meet the love of my life in Chinese because I want a Chinese girlfriend. And that's going to be a lot more motivating than just simply being a bit more vague and just be like, oh, I just want to be able to communicate in Chinese. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it. It's just that, yeah, Chinese is a really big language, and it also gives you a lot of great opportunities to learn it. So don't waste your time today and go learn Chinese if you've just been trying to, let's say, think about it, because there's not going to be any more tomorrow. Start today. And if you really want to learn how to learn Chinese, then I highly recommend check out all the other videos in my channel, and also check out the Chinese communication course in the description, where I'm still working on it. But once it's finished, it's going to be, well, pretty much all the knowledge I have combined into it with just immersion learning, and also, well, just how to speak Chinese, and even how to, let's say, overcome the dreaded speaking anxiety that comes with every foreign language ever. So we have a road to explore. 我们的旅程刚刚开始. Also, thank you for watching. Oh, one more thing as well is that if you also have any more questions regarding, let's say, language learning, DM me on Instagram. Don't hesitate as well. I will reply to you. But of course, well, yeah.